not even in private, but in public and private, they routinely put into practice what the 1 million's trying to do about taking care of their own first without shame. And it doesn't mean you have to actively try and hurt someone else, which we really shouldn't have to say that, but due to the mental slavery of our people, I say it every now and then that we're not about hating other folks. We're not about oppressing other folks. We just want our own, want to protect ourselves, including the black predators from our own selves. Like we mentioned before, black folks harm the community, as well as those that are sellouts that are in league with those external to the community that are actively trying to harm it. So you don't have the luxury, if you're a black person and fighting on behalf of the black community, to only deal with anti-black racism or to only deal with the internal issues. You have to have a holistic collective of people to deal. So that's why I stressed that last sentence in the paragraph. I guess pausing there before I get deep into the weeds on the three areas, I didn't know if there was any question that needed to be asked or if I overlooked anything.
No, man, I really like that particular point, though. You're talking about the mental slavery as far as the mental stuff that we went through in the past and things of that nature. I hear when people say that they're pro-black, they automatically always say, well, I'm not anti-white because I'm pro-black. It's almost like they have to apologize, and like clarify why they're pro-black. It's come with like a, well, it's comes with a mission statement. I'm pro-black, but I don't hate everybody. But you can be pro-black, just be pro-black. It doesn't mean anything. But like you said, other races tend to take that as well, you're not this. No, I'm just pro-black. Aren't you pro-white? You know what I mean? I'm not mad at people that's pro-white. Be pro-white, but just don't be anti-black. You see what I'm saying? So my thing is that everybody has a right to be whatever they need to be without stepping on anybody else for being that. Be who you can be. Like I said, be proud who you are, right? You don't have to step on anyone to make anyone feel a certain way because you are that. But as you say, I think the connotation comes with that. When they hear pro-black, they automatically think radical. They automatically think militant. If I had $1 for every time I got called militant, I wouldn't have to work a day in my life. Right. But I would have to explain. I'm like, it's not militant because I don't conform to the way the system is set in front. I don't feel that was for me. So I'm sorry. I'm not going to conform to something that I know wasn't set out with my best interest in mind. I'm going to go the other direction. And you're free to join me if you want to, but I'm not going to go that direction because that wasn't set up for me. So that's we talk about how when people are in the streets and stuff, right, selling drugs and things of that nature, then they get caught up in the penitentiary system and the penal system. Okay, if you know that system is not for you, then don't do anything and get caught up to put yourself in that system because you're going to just be another number. So don't put yourself in that system because if we're brilliant enough to sell dope and all those kind of things, we're brilliant enough to start businesses, right?
Exactly. You're right. We're brilliant enough. Matter of fact, one guy who was teaching me in one of my engineering classes when I went to engineering school, I asked him how did he end up being a tutor. He said, well, he was hanging on the corner doing stuff he shouldn't have been doing. Some of the guys said, man, you smart, man. You could be doing this. He ended up tutoring me. So
just like
it's
that.
amazing what we can do when we turn it to a positive. Yep, exactly.
You have to.
Hey.
You have to. It is a must. It is a must. So you're definitely right about that. But go ahead, man. I didn't mean to throw you out point. I just wanted to just kind of say something about that because that is really a huge factor, though. How we think mentally really affects everything. How we think mentally, because if your mind is not right, nothing else is going to flow. Nothing else is going to flow.
And that actually helps out the rest of the conversation because some people are asking, well, you calling yourself the million? We haven't heard of you, or why are you calling yourself the million? If you do the math, and I'm going to give you a little bit of history again, our two co-founders, and they weren't necessarily the only ones that co-founded the movement, but they agreed to be out front, and there's other people working behind the scenes, some a little bit more in front that I don't want to dishonor. So let's just say there's some key people moving. But our two co-founders, our two elders, they were joking about the biblical reference to Sodom and Gomorrah, where Abraham got down to 50 righteous, and then I believe that there were discussions about 10 righteous. And it's like, what if he would have asked about the equivalent of 2%? And they can explain the whole history of that discussion, but we looked at the black community and we realize, a lot of us aren't there. A lot of us are lost in the wilderness, figuratively speaking. We don't have a whole lot of time. Those who are set on our demise, including some internal to the community that are too selfish and what have you, self-absorbed to care. Those who are set on our demise are not going to give you all this time. So we have to be the magnet being pulled through the trash heap. And based on what we know, if we can get roughly, it's a rough estimate of 2 million black folks, 2% of the black folks in this country, you'll come up with roughly 1 million. So again, roughly 2 out of every 100 black people we feel is mentally and action-oriented production enough to see what we're trying to do and become a part of it. So that's where the 1 million comes from. We're thinking 2 out of every 100 black people will be prepared to take this journey if we're dragging our proverbial magnet through the trash heap. The other 98 out of 100, for various reasons, won't necessarily see the vision right away. Now, we're hoping we're wrong in a positive sense. In other words, we're hoping eventually it'll be a few million, as many as we can. But looking at the reality of where we at right now, just like some people were taught to say in network marketing, where they say, look to the person next to you. Not everybody going to make it.
Nope.
It is sad. But it is sad. But even using again, religion as a reference, whether people hate it or not, is an excellent reference to describe behavior and even human behavior. Only so few righteous. If you look at Noah's Ark, eight was saved. Relatively speaking, it's too few black people that are willing to do what they need to do to be saved. But the good news is a few has always done the pioneering work for the many. Even once you get away from the black struggle and get out of race, whether you love or hate the Mormons, they came into a desert area, pulled their resources and ingenuity together. Now they're some of the wealthiest people, and some of them live modest where you don't know, but they're pretty wealthy among people of the world, and not just wealthy, but in taking care of folks. Now, they let some non-Europeans up in that situation, but that's another discussion another time. Also, and this will be the final point I make on the 1 million, because I want to make sure I end that point on a positive note.
Yeah, definitely.
Whether you love or hate Israel, one of my elders described to me those that are ascribed to be, quote, Zionist. Whether you love or hate Israel, whether or not you believe they're real Jews, again, another discussion that you won't hear from me. They're less than the 2% of the so-called Jewish people, less than 2%. So when you think about that, we are looking for roughly 2% of black folks. So look what the Zionists, if you will, accomplished. You can look in history where other situations where you had less than 2% accomplished. And last but not least, since voters is at the end of our name, most elections are determined by less than 2% of the vote. So imagine, which is why plank number 1, when you go to the About Us and scroll down to our plank tab and click on it, our planks are divided into 3 categories. The first category is internal plank. When you look at no party affiliation, we want all members to either, when you sign up to vote, do it as NPA, no party affiliation, or equivalent. And the reason you don't want to do independent is because at some areas, some jurisdiction, independent is itself a political party. True. The purpose of this is twofold. You withdraw allegiance to all white-owned and controlled political parties, and you can read verbatim what number 1 says, so I'm summing it up for those that are on our website. You withdraw all allegiance from white-owned and controlled political parties to our 23 planks, the needs of black folks as we see it. And one thing I didn't realize till one of our elders told me, these political parties from national headquarters, once you get down to regional and state and all that, they get money in those jurisdictions based on their numbers. So imagine a whole bunch of a whole bunch of black folks drop out of a certain political party. It doesn't matter if it's Democrat or Republican, just think of the concept. Now, that party at that local area, let's just use the county of Florida where I'm at, Okaloosa County, for example. Now that party has lost a lot of money because they're like, well, you got less members, and now we got to convert that money to trying to recruit more folks.
Yeah.
So when we talk about loyalty and what have you, and we complain about not getting enough quid pro quo for our vote, and some of us try to tell us to jump out of the Democratic frying pan into the Republican fire, proverbially speaking, and it doesn't really matter if you think one party's worse. We know both of them don't really care about us, even if one of them treats us, quote, better. So that's the point I'm trying to make.
Do they? Do they? Do they? I'm just saying, man. I mean, I wasn't trying to mess up your point, but do they really treat us better? I'm just saying. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
and that's why I left it at that. But yeah, you're right. It's like whether because you got some black folks that make a good point about why the Democrats this and that, but as long as you remember the history of the party, prior to Reconstruction, the Republican Party of yesterday is different from the Republican Party of today,
True.
And vice versa. Some would even say, well, prior to Lee Atwater. So either way, you can tell that both parties took a different approach when it comes to black folks, and they switched roles at a certain time in history.
Mm-hmm.
And even when they switch roles, there's key agendas that we are put on the back burner for that's not going to help us, not related to us. So I hope that final point about the million was made about how much you can do with 2% or less of dedicated, coordinated, of the same mind and same judgment of the accord folks.
Yes, sir. That was a solid point. Only a few would do, but a few would be many. A few heads up. So all we need is a few of the willing. What I'm getting from that, though, just give a few that's willing to get out here and do the work and willing to understand the concept rather than a whole bunch of people that don't want to be there because all they're going to do is mess it up. So, again, the numbers, they'll start adding up after a while as long as you get those people there that's effective. Because one thing about success, and then you started getting success and people start seeing it working, they'll jump on. That out of that 98 that's left, you'll start being 95, 94, 93, right? Because people want to be a part of a winner. Think about it when a team wins, like when this team wins a football game or whatever. What they say? We won. We did good,
Yep.
But guess what though? When they lose and have a 4-10 season, what they say? They sorry.
Y'all sorry.
They sorry. Y'all sorry. Now, what about we? I thought, what about we? So everybody wants to be connected with success.
Yep. People claiming towns they ain't from because it's seemingly successful. All kinds of stuff.
Yeah, man.
You're right
crazy.
about that.
It's a mentality. Again, mentality. The mentality of it, man. That's the thing about it. The mindset of it all. But I don't want to go mess you off. I'll get you all point or whatever. What's your next point, my man? I don't want to throw y'all because you know how we talk. We'll go all night. I just like talking to you, man. Great conversation.
Hey, I enjoy it because we this is action-oriented conversation, even if we drift off a little bit. Action-oriented.
Yes, sir. It's fun, man. It's fun. It's all good. Edutainment is what I call this show.
Yep. It being when we look at that edutainment, another feather in our cap on this is now those 2% become permanent swing vote, where now the political parties are forced to pander to you because then again, a lot of elections, both local and national, a lot of elections, we ain't saying 100%, a lot of elections is 2% of the vote or less. So when we talk about the public policy, because some black folks have a problem with us not emphasizing voting as much. Voting is in your name. How can you say, well, there's a way that you have to vote with your economics and your public policy sense? Well, when you're not loyal to any political party and they have to work for your vote, and you show them these 23 planks, again, for those on the website, I'm looking at our internal planks right now, which is 6, but we've got 2 more categories. Those 23 planks are under the following 3 categories: internal planks, constitutionality and civilian-based law enforcement, and reciprocity to American citizens. We want a candidate that's going to support as close to those 23 planks as possible, preferably all of them. Misconduct insurance against for all law enforcement officers. Doctors got to have malpractice. Why can't police officers that willy-nilly like beating and shooting people can't be forced to have insurance? If they can't pay for it, the police unions that want to protect criminals with badges can. These are the things we're fighting for.